Welcome to the Founders Forum podcast, brought to you by the Foxwell Founders, where we interview some of the hottest minds in D2C right now and deep dive on their area of expertise. Everyone that we interview here is a cherished member of our Foxwell Founders community of over 550 advertisers worldwide and are at the cutting edge of what is working right now. I hope you enjoy this, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Andrew at Foxwell Digital. And now let's get stuck into this week's episode. Here are Edwin and Tris, our hosts.
Three best ways that we've ever seen to deal with this is
it's one of the things that's working really, really well for our agency right now.
Question of the week, right?
He's going to spill all the tea on TikTok for us. What is the oh wow strategy of the moment? If it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Who buys it even at that time, right?
Guys, we got a banger for you today. We have Collin Slattery from Tycoon Agency. I wanted to gatekeep him from you guys. Collin, for those of you that don't know, is one of the best multi-platform people I have ever met. He is one of the few gems. He is one of the few people that is good at both Facebook and Google and is the real deal. Collin, welcome to the pod. Tris, kick us off.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome, man. Tell me first, starting straight into that. So you're one of the main guys that talks, Meta and Google. How do you see these two interacting with each other? For a brand, and how do you scale a brand with the two of those together?
It's a great question. They obviously play different roles, right? Facebook is great on the demand gen side, and Google really demand capture. Although Google obviously trying to get into the demand gen as well with YouTube and scaling up YouTube. But they can both obviously play a role, right? I think, especially for products that are more visual, Meta's going to do really well. Like, beauty can struggle on Google because you don't have that visual component to it, right? Things that are much easier to understand can do much better on Google than Meta. So, I think it's part of, I think each brand can benefit from both, but I think certain types of brands are going to do better on specific platforms, right? If you need a lot of visual, Facebook is great. If you don't, Google's going to be really great. So if we're talking apparel brands, say, for example, straight out the gate, they require a lot of visual to kind of have it convincing. So that really depends, right? I mean, if it's basic apparel, I don't think so, right? So stuff that people expect and they know what it is. I don't think it needs a lot of explanation, but if you're like a special tech clothing, right, where you really need to explain like the benefits of it, then I think you're definitely going to need it. But if you're like, hey, I'm just selling t-shirts, right? Like your product feed is probably okay.
It's going to be enough. And so you find then when you're working with both Meta and Google, you're going to really focus on the feed. You mentioned the feed products there. So it's mainly kind of PMax and, any kind of feed ads, top of funnel or DPAs generally. Like, would you put much credence outside of those two?
Yeah, I mean, feeds are good. Product feeds are going to be huge, right? Especially the marked up ones on Facebook. Like I think we've all seen, and Edwin, I think, feed king here. So maybe I shouldn't be really speaking too much about the feed stuff and defer to the expert. But I mean that's a big part of it, especially if you have a large enough SKU catalog, right? I think on Google in particular, that is incredibly important because the more SKUs you have, the more like search real estate you can take up because you're not targeting with like shopping ads, right? Or PMax feed ads, right? Google's just pulling all of that from the information that's in the feed. So bigger feed tends to be better.
And when you're optimizing the feed, then it's the standard kind of stuff. It's optimizing the description, the titles, and you're using something. You're not just optimizing the titles in Shopify. You're bringing those across, right?
Yeah, I mean we use software to do that, but I mean categories, right? Those things, obviously titles, descriptions, etc.
Making sure you have those all right.
Yeah. Although you did also say, and I didn't want to ignore it, is there opportunity in other stuff? And the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Tell us more.
Spill the tea.
Spill the
Spill the
tea.
tea.
We want to do the Google side. So people kind of poo-poo search. And like, oh, don't think search can work for e-commerce, and that's just blatantly untrue.
Okay.
It can be better than shopping. Like, it really can.
Non-brand search.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Tell us
Wait,
more.
like,
Tell us
yeah,
more.
yeah.
Open up my
Give us
chest.
an example. Give us an example here.
So we work with a company that does like replacement car parts. Very unsexy.
Okay.
Huge feed. Like tens
Yeah.
of thousands of SKUs. So the feeds
Crazy.
do really well.
Yeah.
But non-brand search does also incredibly well. Like make plus model plus product. It doesn't get the same level of inventory, and that's one of the big things that I think is important to think about if you want to do non-brand search for e-commerce is seeing what percentage of the inventory is available for search ads, because
Okay.
a lot of the time search will just not show up against the queries because they're prioritizing shopping above search.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The top of the SERP is discovery, is shopping, and all the discovery at the top, and then it's just pushed right down. And even on your phone, is like further down.
Yeah, and it does vary based on category, right? So ideally it's going to have a good coverage of search ads. Otherwise, you're like, oh, this has 200,000 searches a month. But like the inventory for actual search ads is like basically nothing. And you're like, all right, I wasted all this time making it for no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, non-brand search ads can do great for e-commerce. You really have to have landing pages. It doesn't work with PDPs. That's the one, I think, big wrinkle is that if you are just sending them to the PDP, it's not going to work. Even
why
if they're
is that?
great.
Tell us more about that. Is it cold traffic? Is it conversion rate? What are you looking for there?
So usually there's modifiers to whatever people are searching for like best replacement wiper blades for X, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need this agreement between the query and what's on the landing page in order to get a high conversion rate to make money. Like the clicks on search are generally going to be more expensive than the shopping clicks, and so you really need that boosted conversion rate in order to have the economics work.
Makes
You know.
sense. Makes a ton
And lots
sense.
of little details. So it can be like color plus whatever, or like best X for problem, right? And then you're like, all right, this is, the best shoes for like low arches or something. And your product page is probably not going to have that angle specifically. So the landing
Show it
page
on
really
the
needs
landing page,
to get the conversion rate up.
And so then when you've got the landing page, are you, say for example, you mentioned a color plus whatever, say it's a color plus bumper, we'll call it. Are you then going red, blue, green, we'll say, you're going 3 different landing pages for those 3 queries or 3 kind of search terms?
Yeah, so I mean, you group the search terms together, but it's easy duplication. But it is effort, which is why you need to make sure the volume's there, or it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Wait. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just pass the search query into the URL params and then have the landing page pull the URL params and then adjust the title accordingly?
You can do that. And dynamic keyword insertion is also a thing that you can do. Some platforms offer that. I'm not the web developer here in terms of passing parameters, and I think a lot of clients that's probably a little beyond their technical capacity too.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can pass parameters dynamically, that's the ideal. And it works for gender too. So if you're doing weight loss and it's men searching versus women searching, you can pass that parameter dynamically and it'll update the images so it features men or women. If you're good with that, it makes all of this a lot easier.
Yeah. And so, but if you're not good at that, and for the 95% of people going to be listening or watching, what we're saying here is you have a landing page for each of those. And so you must be building landing pages, I suppose, at scale. You're talking, 5, 10, 15 landing pages a week, possibly.
Oh, there's tons and tons and tons of landing pages. Yeah.
Okay.
And so for your feed, so you have the description, you're customizing the description, right? So let's say it's for an apparel brand. What is the general formula that you're using? Is it like gender, color, product title, brand? Like what is the general recipe that you're using on that? Or does it not, is that overemphasized?
So I think the description is less important than the title. I mean,
Oh, right.
we're
the title.
truthfully we're trying to keyword stuff the shit out of it.
Okay.
To try and get like how people are searching for and surfacing products.
Yeah.
To get that into the title. Like the title's super truncated anyway. So like you can have a lot of additional stuff on that title that can come in through the searches. Because that's the only way that people know, like that's the only way Google knows to surface your products.
Your query,
It'll look at category too, right? But you stuff that description with as much like relevant query content as you possibly can, because you just want more volume. But you can't even see the description really, except in I think a handful of placements.
And so with that, like, because it sounds like that's a very Temu approach. I don't know if you've ever looked at a product on Temu, but it's literally keyword like out the ass, really. What if we're talking kind of Temu then specifically when it comes, and Amazon as well? A lot of the products that for some of our brands we see working, we then see their biggest search competitors are Amazon or Temu.
Yeah.
How are you finding that at the moment? Is that a real threat for you for the search industry?
I mean, it makes margins worse, that's for sure. And Temu's got money to spend because it was the Super Bowl last night, and they had a lot of money that they lit on fire there. So they have deep pockets, and
for sure.
They're making it hurt.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you finding it? Is it? You're saying margins are going down. Is cost per click and everything going up as a result of these big spenders coming into the market?
Yeah, I mean, usually if you see Amazon or Temu like starting to show up in your auction insights report, it's bad news because those CPCs get real upward pressure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say, yeah, you're competing there for conversion rate and everything else like that as well. So that must be tough. And
they'll take a loss too. That's the other thing. Like they don't give a shit about the margin. Like you have to make money. They don't have to make money. They're like, we're losing this money. We don't care. Different economics.
Disruptions in the industry. So you've got Temu, you've got Amazon, but then what about AI? Because Bard, was in I think Bard was introduced over the weekend, properly. I think I got an email saying Bard is now Gemini. Did you guys get the same email?
I haven't checked my email. I've been off the email, so we'll see. Okay, well, I'll get back to you after this.
I got an email and 2 of my emails saying Bard is now Gemini, which is obviously introducing LLMs into search. Obviously, ChatGPT being a big thing that people are using now to search for questions they have as opposed to actual sites. So, how much do you feel that AI is going to start taking from Google's share, and then how much is actually going to move over to Bing over the next couple of months?
I don't think any's going to move over to Bing, to be honest with you.
It's unsavable.
I just don't think I don't think it's going to move the needle. I think it is an existential threat for Google's search business, like AI generally. And I think the future of Google is YouTube and not search, right? I mean, search is an old technology. It's essentially a digital white pages or yellow pages, right? Like you're looking for a plumber, and instead of opening up a yellow book and going through plumbers and they're all listed in there, you're searching plumbers near me on a little box and it comes up with the same thing. So I think they're probably in trouble over the next 10 years. I would expect that before the end of the decade, YouTube will be a bigger percentage of revenue than search, probably.
Interesting. So talking about YouTube then, is it, since you're doing both social and search, is it a lot like you're taking reels and putting on shorts, or is there specific stuff you're doing on YouTube pre-rolls that are working for you?
Yeah, so like easiest low hanging fruit if you're running on Meta is taking your 9x16s and dropping them into shorts.
Gotcha.
You do have to hack around a little bit to get the shorts placement. Google isn't giving it to you yet as like a standalone placement, but I think they probably will. But yeah, that's kind of the easiest.
Wait,
What's the
does
hack?
it make money? Does it make money?
Yeah,
does YouTube-
absolutely.
Oh, it's making money. Like what kind of? Because I haven't had a chance to play around with YouTube Shorts yet, and so I'm interested in the digits. Like, how much can you spend? What's the return looking like? Well, what does that picture look like?
So direct return is so in-platform attribution, which does undercount YouTube fairly significantly, is about 32% worse. And I'm pulling this out of my memory from when I did the research for my presentation on Shorts. I think it's 32% worse than non-brand search in platform. When you look at it on like a post-purchase attribution, it's pretty much 1-to-1 with Meta.
Whoa.
That's big news.
Wait, how much can I spend in it? Like, is it scalable?
Not really, and that's the thing, right? It probably caps
Okay.
out at a few $1,000s a day. We'll say like $3,000 to $5,000 a day, so it's not nothing. But
No, that's a lot of beans.
you're not going to put 20, 30, 50,000 a day into shorts yet, anyway. But like
Yeah.
a few grand at like Meta efficiency, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. And is it
Whoa.
what's the thing then that's driving that? Is it targeting plus creative, or is it like where Meta's going and it's a lot more focused mainly around creative and leave it on broad, massive lookalikes and just really focus on getting good creative?
So I'd say it's more the creative on shorts, and I think targeting is probably more important for regular YouTube. You know, I like to call like YouTube is basically Meta in 2018, right? When we all remember Meta in 2018, right? Not as smart. You got your interest plus your lookalike stack plus your broad audience running in a CBO, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, we're doing audience testing, and like that's still something that you do on YouTube. So it's not as smart as Meta. So you can do some audience testing, especially on regular YouTube. But creative's big. And usually if something works on like TikTok, it's gonna work on Shorts, right? And it's pretty much true for Meta video content as well. If it's gonna work on Meta, it's gonna work on Shorts. You don't even really have to change it. I mean, if you do change it to fit like their sort of overlay, it'll do better. But you can literally, and that's just the easiest thing. People are like, hey, we have all these like great performers on Meta. You're like, throw them right into Shorts, just like straight drop them in, no changes, and they usually
broad
do
targeting,
pretty
just
well.
chuck it in and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the easiest way to start. You could throw some audience testing in there. I mean, they do have pretty good audiences depending on your vertical, and you can test a few of those. So you get like the 3 audience stack test in there. Try to keep them about the same size, right? You don't want one of them to be too big compared to the other two.
The same stuff that you're hearing from Meta for the last 5 years. The same thing's going to happen here.
And so how do you sort of shim it? How do you shim in the placement? Like, is it because you can't just check the box like serve up on YouTube Shorts only? So what is it? Is it like serve it up and then you exclude everything? Like how do you get the placement?
Yeah, so you have to set it to mobile only. You have to make sure you're using a specific Shorts link because like a YouTube Shorts, like it's uploaded to Shorts specifically instead of just YouTube. So you have a Shorts link. You don't expand the inventory. There's like 3 or 4 settings that you have to uncheck in order to make sure that it's going to serve as Shorts. And it's not even a guarantee that it is Shorts only, because they're not going to guarantee that. But we do find that it is pretty much almost exclusively Shorts. And notice a material performance difference between the Shorts campaign and just like a standard YouTube pre-roll.
So materially better, materially worse?
Materially better on like a conversion focused basis,
Nice.
which I think makes a
That's
lot of
stuff here.
sense.
This is a gem.
Yeah.
Just this is worth listening to the whole gosh darn podcast. I could spend extra 100,000 a month Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And at like meta efficiency, again, like when you factor in like the post purchase component of it. So like meta plus post purchase against YouTube Shorts plus post purchase, basically almost 1-to-1.
Wow.
Wait,
Pretty
so
close.
Can
YouTube Shorts actually comes out a little bit ahead, just a smidge, but and a pretty big sample size too. I mean, we're talking like tens of thousands of post purchase surveys and like 100,000 orders or something. So like pretty big sample size.
Can we tell? Okay, so can you tell the audience what are the things that you have to uncheck? If you have to look it up, I will wait.
I will pull my presentation for the exact 5. I think it's 5 things.
This is the new Power
Also,
5.
this is a little Foxwell promotion. It was in my presentation for the YouTube conference. So if you're a Foxwell member, get in on that.
It's a great conference. You got to get that.
That's right. Yeah. Let me pull this up.
That's mad. Did you know this, Tris?
No, hadn't a clue.
I had no fucking idea. I'm gonna go make some money after this podcast. This is crazy.
So actually, it's significantly better. It's a 4.77 versus a 4.32 against like lots and lots of spend.
So tell me, I'm dying to hear. So what are these things that I gotta uncheck so I get YouTube short only placement? Tell me.
Yeah. So first, you got to make sure it's uploaded to Shorts,
Okay.
and that means it's going to have the Shorts like in the URL itself. If you don't see Shorts in the URL, you upload it to regular YouTube, and that's not going to work.
Okay.
You need to make sure video enhancements are off.
Okay.
And then you set the placement to mobile only. And those are the 3 big keys to make sure that it's going to be running as Shorts.
Guys, Collin just gave us the recipe. We could squeeze out another 3 to 5K a day with this. This is the recipe.
And a 1-to-1 level of performance. I think that's the thing. If you got the creative, you've got another place to put it that you get some good.
No,
performance.
Tris, it's not 1-to-1. Collin did post purchase on over 50,000 purchases, and we got more return off of YouTube Short than Meta.
4.77 versus 4.32 was, and a big sample size too.
That's bro. We make our money off Meta. YouTube Shorts is beating Meta. What the heck?
It's really good.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. Wait, so we just got a gem. Collin, I'm gonna dip into something else that I think a lot of people also they don't know about you. We got to know it because we talked. So you're good at Google, you're good at Facebook, but you're also good about your money and how you run your agency because you have one of the best margins I have ever heard on an agency. And so if you don't mind sharing, can you tell us what it is and tell us what are the keys? How do we get such healthy margins off the business?
You want my actual margins?
Or we could skip that part.
I mean, I'm comfortably north of 40%.
Wow,
So
that's decent for an agency.
It's pretty good, and that's counting my salary in there as well. Like that's counting my comp.
How do you have it set up? Like, what is it, a pod system, or how do you have it going?
So we do use a pod system. I think for us the key is that we essentially have a split talent pool. So we have very well compensated, like high performing people in the US, and then we get like incredibly high performing talent in Latin America, where just like labor costs are 70 or 80% lower. Like I can hire a truly elite designer in like Mexico for 25 to 30% of the cost of the US for like mid-level talent in the US versus, someone who's like elite in Mexico. And
Smart.
So, that significant, because labor is the biggest input of an agency, right? So if you're cutting a large percentage of your labor costs by 70%, and then you have top tier talent in the US is just generally going to overperform their compensation. if you have like two decent people in the US, like one great person who pay him 50% more than one of those decent people is going to cover those two jobs.
Sure.
So
And
that
you don't see any drop in quality by hiring in Latin America. If you're hiring elsewhere, because we do it. I do it as well. We do it in Eastern Europe. We do it in India, and we don't see any drop in quality. It sounds like you got the same key.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, the hiring process is hard. I'm glad I'm not the one doing it. That's director of paid media's job. Because, like, you have to sift through tons and tons and tons of resumes, like thousands. I mean, that's kind of true, though, for even, like, domestic jobs, too, right? Like, we're about to hire a senior PPC person, and it was, like, 700 resumes to filter down to, like, 3 people.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That is great. And so your labor costs are the biggest thing. And so how much of your team is US based, and then how much of your team is foreign based?
It's about 50-50. And I think it'll probably actually skew even more Latin America in the future. Like, I try to keep high level strategy, and that's not to say that you can't find that in Latin America or other places of the world. It's also a perception thing, right? Like, if you're working with US companies and they are hopping on a call with someone who is in Brazil or Eastern Europe or anything, like, even if they are absolutely better than anyone you could hire in the US, there's going to be a perception issue with the client. And I think that's just something that factors in. So pretty much client facing and high level strategies in the US, and then the rest of it is in Latin America.
Nice. And then, like, if you're basing that, the workforce is a good place for you to save some money. But then, obviously, when it comes to charging money, I mean, I've seen all different ways of charging, and this is a big conversation at the moment around how should we be charging? Should we be charging on a fixed fee? Should we be doing percentage spend? Like, what's your opinion on all that? Like, because there's so much conversation going around at the moment around that, and a lot of the people are siding with, let's go with fixed fee, and it fixes that way. But then it doesn't align, the agency's goals with the company's goals. But then people say, oh, well, you're now creaming it off the top when you start to scale it up. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it depends, right? But I also generally agree, like, flat fee, I think the brands think they're going to get a deal, and I don't think that's true, because agencies are not going to go into losses to keep a project, right? Like, we are running businesses. We have to make money. I mean, different clients have different structures, sure. And one I'm starting to see come up more and more is, like, percentage of sales, even just for, like, consistent. So it's a lower percentage, but it gives a consistent percentage of their revenue. Because, like, as you scale up, right, efficiency generally goes down a little bit. And so the agency fee as, like, a percentage of revenue can go up. And so, especially if you're scaling very aggressively and getting those lower targets, a percentage of revenue just gives, like, a more consistent number to the brand. So they're like, okay, it's 3.5% of sales, and it's not going to go up to 4.5% because, like, we've scaled up and we're accepting a lower efficiency number. And so, like, I see that as something that can be, I guess, if you're a savvy brand, like, a potential conversation to have. And it can also make, like, it can be good for the agency too, right? Because they're still going to get that upside. But you're not going to run into a situation where, the budget scales, like, 10x and the efficiency drops, like, 2x or whatever, and you got this, like, percentage of ad spend model that just doubled in size as a percentage of revenue.
And what when it comes to discussions like that, how is that different to, say, I suppose equity is you own part of it, whereas this is literally a percent of overall revenue, or just revenue generated by Meta or in platform?
Oh, it's Shopify revenue. Like, literally the whole thing.
Right. Interesting. So put your money where your mouth is on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, like, I haven't done an equity deal. I think that's a whole different layer of challenge.
One of the things that, agencies face, one of the problems agencies face is, they've started to scale up. They start to bring in new people. They have a head of department that will be running different things. And they start to hear problems with capacity. and people capacity is a big kind of question mark. It's like you've got one guy or girl doing with five clients, and they're running perfectly fine, and they can't keep going. Like they're absolutely fine, they're flying it. Where they've got someone over here with 2 clients, and like they're saying they're at capacity. They might be managing a bigger client, but how do you manage capacity in your agency?
Wait, how many accounts do you have per head?
Yeah.
To begin with.
So that varies.
Okay.
We'll say 5 to 8 is the range that we keep it in. And like Tris hits it right. Like, if they're much bigger projects, like they're going to take more time. Mm-hmm. Probably not going to have a full 7 or 8 of those. That's closer to the 5 mark.
So you've grown this agency to this wonderful place. And so what have been the biggest game changers for you when you were going from 0 to 5 on the head count, and when you hit 12 on the head count, and then now where you are? Like, what have been the biggest game changers for you as you grew your agency?
Process, process and automation, key. So our processes are, I would say, actually maybe a little over-engineered. Like, we can probably scale without material changes in process to probably 60 people.
Wow.
Like, they're very well designed, and then anything that can run as an automation. Like Zapier and Integromat are like all through my systems. Like,
this
what are you automating? Like, tell me the stuff that you're automating.
So, like, our sales process is almost completely automated outside of me doing the proposal. So, like, a lead will come in. Okay. It gets kicked into ActiveCampaign, which is what we use as like our CRM and email platform. Like, they schedule the call in Calendly. It will then update them in ActiveCampaign that they have booked, so they will no longer get the rest of the initial intro flow, right? It'll create the deal. It will then create an entry in Proposify that we use for Proposify, so their contact information is already in Proposify. We'll have the discovery call. That will automatically get updated once the discovery call is over, and I've added my notes in ActiveCampaign. Okay. I do have to manually create the proposal in Proposify, but that's the final step where I actually have to do anything. Because once it gets signed, it updates the deal in ActiveCampaign to closed, which will trigger an automation in ClickUp to create a folder based on a template that has like the basic workflows to onboard that type of client.
A lot of the processes are automated, but then you have your own processes within the team. That obviously makes sense when you're cross-country in Latin America versus in the US. And when it comes to following processes, is that something you're looking for in the interview with these people? Is like, how good are these people going to be at following processes, or is it how good are they innovating at the processes?
So I think there's just like an acceptance that like we're using processes and that they are not they're not static, right? Like they're gonna change and evolve and improve, and that's the thing. Like, if you tell me this sucks, like, that's great. Tell me this sucks and you don't like it, but at least use it as it's written, because then you'll know what's wrong with it and we can make it better. And constantly iterating on processes and making them better, making changes to them. This actually does get back to workload forecasting, because we do track time for every single thing, and like everything, all time is tracked by everyone down to like the task level. It adds probably 5 minutes of friction a day per employee. And I always tell people, look, I'm not tracking your time to like be like, hey, you worked 38 hours and 23 minutes this week, like what happened? It's to get an accurate forecast on profitability per client, right? Like, our inputs are labor, our costs are labor. If you don't know how much time went into the client, you don't know how much money you made or lost on the client. But then like accurate estimates for how long specific tasks take, so that you can update those and okay, this person actually has 36 hours of work on their schedule this week. Like, and you're reasonably certain that is roughly accurate for how long things take. And also you can see if they take longer than the estimate, maybe they need some additional training, maybe they don't understand something, right? So all our time estimates, like I can go back to 2014 and tell you like how much time I spent on a random task.
You're using that very much to see how profitable it is per client that you're working with. And is there a point then you go, look, we're spending way too much on this, we either cut down on the work that we're doing, or we fire the client, or we make it more profitable?
Yeah, it's like, well, are we spending too much time on things that don't move the needle in this client? Is it just it's going to be too much work to get them where they need to go? And yeah, like I'll fire clients on profitability reasons like pretty regularly. Like us making money is how everyone, also makes money.
That's it. Down straight. Well, listen, Collin, it's been a pleasure. This is some fantastic stuff that you're spitting out here. I mean, we went through so much around Google, around YouTube, and then started talking a bit about agency life. I mean, this has been fantastic. So listen, guys, thanks for everyone who reached it this far. I've been Tris.
I'm Edwin.
I'm Collin.
Talk to you guys in the next one. See you soon.